Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition. It's the 34th edition of our COVID news program that we bring you on a daily basis. Today is the 22nd of April. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, and with me in the studio today is Toivo Njembela. He's the editor of Namibian Sun. Welcome, Toivo.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, we've got quite a full program again. Obviously, we want to bring you as much as possible news. I think even though it might be less COVID related for the moment, I think one of the major items that should feature is Namibia is still on position number 1 in terms of world press freedom.
Yes.
I must say though, there's a bit of a slight angle to it, because what was surprising is that yes, we're the first, and we also still kept position 23 internationally. But it seems as though the general attitude and sometimes disdainful behavior towards media from the government side was seen as a negative. So we had a bit of a negativity in that regard. But what actually picked it up again was the judgment when when Ministry of Defense tried to get that article from the Patriot shut down. And yeah, it's obviously good news if we maintain the same position. Would have been nicer, because I think our aim should not always be to congratulate ourselves for being first in Africa.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that our next step should be to improve on the position 23 worldwide, because that's surely where we need to go with this.
I agree, Frank. There's someone, a South African, who was speaking to me this morning, and he was saying they believe that they have a much freer press there than here. I do not perhaps agree, but I agree that lately there are some
niggling issues.
Yeah. Which we have to tackle, because if we continue at the pace at which some of these niggling issues are happening, we may lose our position as number 1 in Africa. But I agree also that indeed globally we must strive to go up a little bit.
Yeah, it should not be good enough to just take Africa and now we're good. Yeah. It should really be, we should be the best. And a couple of years back, I remember we competed against the big countries, countries like Canada and so on. So there's no need for us to suddenly be still first in Africa, but so much worse off internationally. And so, yeah, to me, this is a serious issue, especially I've been somebody who's been quite vocal about the fact that you know, especially from the presidential office, there seems to be that attitude that as long as he allows government or public enterprise media in and they can share with us, that's good enough. That's not good enough. Free press is free press, not sometimes and not only for certain conditions, it's always. So COVID, I think, might nip the government in the bud a bit.
I think COVID has actually, some of this repressive approaches actually started springing up during this COVID period. We saw, when was it? This week, when I think when the president was announcing, was yesterday as a matter of fact, when he was announcing the new governor of the Bank of Namibia, that only the state MBC essentially was allowed in. Everybody else was not allowed. Of course, they are using social distancing as an excuse, which is fair in some sense. But we have always warned as a media that we shouldn't now use this window of opportunity of COVID to sort of now get to the rest.
To repress the rest, there should be some system which allows at least one or another of the other press agencies or press outlets to also be there and channel their questions, because the worst part of it is always we're always being invited to put in questions, but the questions are not voiced, so there's not much point there. Indeed. So yes, this is surely something that worries me quite a lot. But let's carry on. We also have today internationally, we have the World Earth Day, and we've prepared a couple of slides for you. Obviously, we will not read them all off now. It's not the idea. But I think what you can see is NMH particularly has always been somebody we as a group always promoted reuse, renew and refresh, whether that's at home or in your garden or whatever, and we don't pass these slides too fast so that you can later go and have another look at them and maybe stop the video for a moment and just see what we've listed up there, because there are a couple of good ideas. You can see it in the garden, in the kitchen, wherever you are at home. Reuse, renew. It's the 3 R's. It's always been the main issue. And then obviously end plastic pollution. I know that internationally there's a big drive to end that. And I think COVID has had the sad ability to put a bit of a lid on these sort of initiatives. So one can only hope that it will become better. Global teaching is obviously important. We see it now.
Yes. I think Namibia having enacted the plastic tax, or is it the levy, that also perhaps speaks to a day like this, that now we no longer just throw away plastic bags as we wish, because you pay a price tomorrow. So maybe the conservation of what you have in terms of plastic bags becomes more important now.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, our teachings, obviously e-learning is the big issue now. We've spoken a lot about it, obviously COVID related. But as somebody said only this week is COVID has technically just gone and pushed the whole agenda forward by a huge margin. And so, yes, you obviously have the artists of the earth being a sort of joint effort by them to sort of work towards these efforts. All to the benefit of our earth. We only have that one, so let's look after it.
Indeed. I think up next, Frank, is
got Jochi, is it not?
We have Johanan Kotsia, our colleague, who was, as always, at the press center, the COVID press center, and he prepared this material for us.
Brief. During the period of lockdown, an employer may not dismiss an employee, serve a notice of retrenchment in terms of Section 34 of the Labor Act, terminate its employment relationship with an employee, or send an employee home on unpaid leave or forced annual leave or sick leave. Now, we know some of these things have been happening, but they're not permitted, and if they were done, employers are expected to reinstate their employees and to discuss with them any issues relating to terms and conditions of employment. If they want to change conditions of employment, of course, they can sit down and work out something that works for both the employer and for the workers, all right? That's number one. Anybody who has been dismissed in violation of what we just said, it's a violation of the law. It's subject to penalties. And also, if an employer had already served a notice of retrenchment to the employees, where the law requires a 4 weeks notice, that period of 4 weeks is deferred until after the lockdown. So the basic idea that we had was, in order to meaningfully negotiate, or even to come up with measures to avoid retrenchment, we have to do this in a period of time where it's possible. It's really not possible during this period of lockdown. The employers will have a more realistic view of how their business is going to go, whether it will resume operations with how many people, whether they are contemplating closing. Then a meaningful discussion of retrenchment can take place. So there will be no dismissals pursuant to a notice of retrenchment, at least until 28 days after the end of the period of lockdown. And I will add that if the parties are negotiating and they do not reach an agreement, under the law, the matter can be referred to the Labor Commissioner for an additional period of conciliation during which dismissals cannot take place. Just maybe two other important
Yes.
points. Employers are expected to put in place safety measures that will prevent the further spread or the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Now, in the Labor Act, there is a provision, Section 42, which basically says an employee who has a reasonable belief that the working conditions are not safe has a right to leave work as long as the employer is notified of the reason, and the employee will not be penalized. They will not suffer a loss of pay or job security. Now, in addition, under the regulations, if an employer has not come up with prevention measures, the employees also are entitled to leave work. Finally,
my whole system kicks against what I see there and hear there. I'm an employee too, and surely for COVID there needs to be some practical thinking. We've been under lockdown for what, longer than 21 days,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden government wakes up and tells the employer, oh, by the way, all the stuff you did over the past 21 days was illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, surely that should have come up a long time before.
I agree. I think it's, and that is why we needed to be very clear from the word go as far as the activities of the guidelines and everything related to COVID-19 are concerned, because there's so much confusion, Frank.
Yeah.
If you from this online e-learning things to the sale of alcohol, every other day is new information and contradictions. So it becomes very difficult for even the attentive person to really follow what is what.
You know, and what's the sad part about it, because this is like stuff on which fake news is born. I mean, everybody starts speculating. Did she mean that? Did she mean that? Where's the plain instruction? This is what is allowed. This is what's not being allowed.
Yeah.
And it's really like one of my colleagues at Allgemeine said this morning to me. He said, the bad news is that even the fake news, you hear it, and like it or not, it goes and has its place in the back of your head.
Yeah.
After 3 days, you can't remember anymore. Listen, was this now fake news or was this fact?
Yeah.
Was it supposed to come? Has it already come? And this is similar. I mean, people were running around. Every second person was saying, under these conditions, I cannot afford to have my employees. I cannot. I mean, what does she want to do? I almost started laughing just now when I heard penalties.
Yeah.
So now my business is bankrupt. I've paid out the guys and I paid what I could. And so sue me, you've just penalized me. I mean, no, come on, there must be a bit of practicality in what we do.
I agree.
So I was annoyed when I saw this part of the program. Okay, talking of COVID, we still have 16 confirmed cases so far. Interesting enough, the negative results have increased to 531, that's 19 more than before. Discarded were 32 and there's one pending, so altogether 20 new tests have been performed, bringing the total to 644. Currently we've got 117 people in quarantine, 3 new ones and 2 were released, and these ones were actually happening in Ohangwena, where there are now 17. Otjozondjupa is 39, Khomas is 20, Zambezi is 29, Karas 12. So total discharged were 323, 10 in isolation, obviously the previously 16 minus 6 that have recovered and been discharged. So yeah, that's the latest news on that front.
Just a quick one, Frank. Ideally, in your thinking, so the lockdown is coming to an end around the 4th of May. What is the ideal good number of people that must have been tested before then, for us to sort of
lots more than what we see here now?
Yeah.
That's why I actually had a good laugh the other day when we said we would now test 250,000. there's a difference between wishful thinking and based on what we should do, and practical thinking in terms of what we can actually achieve. And so far, my biggest gripe has always been that we've aimed for 96. We've not even reached 50% of that mark. Now we suddenly want to increase it to 250,000 in 6 months. That would mean we would have to test more than 1,100 per day. And the biggest excuse is always the reagents. And I accept that we stand in the back of the row, so clearly that will not realize. So my argument would have been, first try and achieve the 96 that you've always held out as being the ideal before you start aiming again for something that is at least 14 times bigger. So what is the ideal number? Well, the ideal number, according to most states these days, is about 10% of your population. That would be 250,000. But that's what I'm saying. That's the difference between wishful thinking and actually being able to do it.
Indeed. Well, what's next? Do we have a sports message?
No, we don't have one today. We'll bring you one again in these next few days. But what we do have, we have a couple of videos from the region.
President must also see us as a street vendor. He must also do for us a favor. If he opened the market for those people there in the market, must also think about us street vendor. If they are say only the marketing gonna open and us street vendor, we're gonna die. Not only those people from marketing are the one who are human being, us also we are a human being. We are sleeping here without water, and we must go to the location and feed water. We are struggling too much. Since the lockdown come, we are just only struggling to go buy something and hide. If someone asking, are you having some tomato to sell there, want to buy, then we say yes. But if the police see you, they will take your stuff and say, no, remove, go and throw. Then we throw that day. Even that day, last of week, the police was here. Then they say, go and throw the thing. We take our stuff and throw it in the dustbin. Actually, my tomatoes, I throw it that side. When the police was here, city police was here, then we asked them. Then they told us, no, you are not allowed. Then we told them, no, we are locked down here. We are not staying this side. Our side, they were staying, actually, all of us were sleeping here. We are staying for different places. Then they say, no, that's your problem. Then we said, no, what we must survive now, without selling, without eating anything. But they say, no allow, go inside your tent and sit in your tent, even not sitting here the way we are sitting here. Just you are supposed only to sit in the tent. Even us, we did not receive those 750. Nothing, what we must eat and what we must survive. And some they told us, Kama, because you're getting for your child, that the money you get for the child, Kama, you are not allowed. And what about myself? Can I also including for that 250 for my child? Now we can't sell. Our children also, they are suffering with hunger. At least if we get that 750, I'm supposed to send that money to my child. They are not allow us to go inside the market because our name is not in the register. We're supposed to wait until the day will come. We don't know which day and which month, nothing.
Itu tulina visoti.
Ja, ek is baie jammer.
Ano het ons hulle moet toelandese.
Ja, ons het hier gekom, ons wil kom gaan verkoop het. Maar ons het nie geweet nie, daar is voor van ons, daar is siekte wat gekom wat ons kry siekte nie. Maar ja, hier is siekte van corona. Hulle het vir ons lockdown hierso. Ja, ons wil teruggaan. Ons hart is pyn. Maar ons het gedink, as ons nou teruggaan, miskien ons het klaar siekte. As ons nou weer eens gaan, miskien ons sal ook onze familie die siekte gaan gee. Belangrijk ding, ons moet maar net sit. Maar ons het baie hartseer. Die polisie wat vir ons gekry het. Hulle het vir ons gesê, gaan julle in huis. Ja, hierdie is nou wat ons het, is baie warm. Ons kan nie daarin sit nie. Ons kry baie swaar soos Israel wat swaar gekry het. Ja, government, hy moet vir ons kyk of die Here moet vir ons kyk. Ja, ons het die klomp tomat verkoop, maar ons het nou alles in astrom gegooi het. Ja, ons het alles in astrom gegooi. Government, hulle moet vir ons ook kyk. Miskien hulle moet vir ons plan maak om te vir ons meel gee. En daai geld wat hulle vir ons gesê is 750, hulle moet vir ons ook kyk. Ons is hierso, ons kry honger. Ons het onze kennis gelos in Noord toe. Hulle kry swaar. Amen.
Sorry, Bush. They say on page 2, the bullet number 3, assist the ministry to follow up with applicants whose applications require further validation upon notification by the ministry. Now, on page 2, this letter from Now, this whole process, because they just started these things over the radio, the news, and the newspapers, that people should apply. They apply as individuals. You see? Now, honorable councillors don't have any record of who have applied in the constituency, who is successful and who is not successful. Now, how do the councillor now come in to assist to validate these things? What the councillor doesn't have a clue of the whole process. These people were in the dark. It's only to find out now that they have a problem. It's now where they're saying now, councillors, how do you come in? That is a challenge what we're having, like my honorable Kauma have said. Consultation. The idea is very, very well, 100%. But consultation with the people who are on the ground, the foot soldiers, who knows the characteristic what I explained earlier on. So that is the challenge that we find ourselves in. It's a very, very serious challenge. Again, also the idea of Kenya to say people should buy these SIM cards. Just imagine, from Karkuisa up to Indurundu, they pay $300 Namibian from Karkuisa up here. You pay $300 Namibian, you come here, you buy the SIM card for $5, $10, and then you apply. You cannot stay here, you don't have money, you don't have relatives here, then you pay another $300 back to Karkuisa. It's already $600 gone. You are only from 750. You are only left with 150.
If you are
now,
not going to get it.
So the other thing is, I was thinking, this United Africa, what is this paymasters, EPUPA? Can they not maybe give this responsibility to EPUPA? I mean, if they do it through these things, the same model, the machinery of EPUPA, it can do this work. Or the other thing, like I said, time have come for our government to build trust with the regional structure. Because we cannot make the regional structure to do, we entrust them to validate, we entrust them to go and register the people, we entrust them to go and assist the people. Their best assistant is you do all these steps. At the end of the day, you are also confident that these people is going to receive his or her money. Otherwise, we can do all these efforts, but at the end of the day, these people don't.
Hello everyone, my name is Alison Muswata. I'm the head girl of St. George's College, and today I'm going to be giving you 3 tips to help you stay healthy and happy during quarantine. My first tip is to find a good balance between work and relaxation. You could do this by picking up a new hobby or maybe working on a hobby that you may have had before. And if you're not feeling very productive, anything that takes your mind off of your schoolwork and helps you to relax for a while is worth spending your time on. My second tip is to limit your negative media intake. So as important as it is to stay up to date with what's going on in the world right now, it's also important that we safeguard our mental health and make sure that we're not taking up too much negative information that may impact our moods or our general outlook on life later on. My last tip is to make sure you stay in touch and socialize with your friends. And I think we're all aware that we can't be in the same room with each other and speak face to face at the moment, but we are privileged enough to have access to social media and phones, so we are still able to keep in touch with our friends and be there for each other during this time. So thank you very much. I hope everyone is staying safe and social distancing, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Keeping busy during a lockdown might be a bit stressful due to all the stress going on outside. Well, I've been socializing via internet as well as doing e-learning, whereby my teacher sends me emails or we chat via Zoom, or we have a Google Classroom, or we have WhatsApp groups. Via email, I usually just print out my PDFs that the teacher sends. I've also been reading a few novels just to keep myself busy. I've also been doing a few homely workouts. I've been washing my hands, obviously. I've been sanitizing. I've been boosting up my vitamin C's and playing a few board and card games. Stay home, stay safe.
It's a combined effort consisting of the municipality, NAMPOD, and the private sector, mainly the truck operators. Now, we came up with a plan to address the issue of the trucks coming in to town, because we are a harbour town and there are a lot of trucks coming in and out of Walvis Bay on a daily basis. Now, with the pandemic that we're having, which is the COVID-19, we had to sit around the table and address the issue. So we need to confine the trucks to a dedicated area. And the area we're talking about is right in front of me. It's about 1,000 square meters or meters. So what will happen is, from the municipality side, we'll provide the necessary services, toilets, put up water connections, and then we'll have refuse removal. From other stakeholders, we'll make sure that the truckers are assisted with the necessities, so that they don't need to leave their trucks here and go elsewhere for the necessities. For example, the masks, the sanitizers, and the gloves. And in addition to that, NAMPOD also committed themselves to make sure that there will be caterers on site, so that the truckers will not need to move around. And again, from the private sector, the truck operators in Walvis Bay, they have committed to provide containers, so that we demarcate the area. In that, we'll have control of movements. And from the corridor group side, they will provide a mobile clinic where the truck drivers will be screened for as long as they will be on site. And from our people in uniform, under the command of the regional commander, they will provide security just to make sure that everybody is safe and there is proper control.
The perimeter wall here at the truck isolation facility is almost done. Truck operators here in Walvis Bay donated empty containers to build this perimeter wall. So this isolation facility will serve incoming truckers.
Yeah, and that was talk to the Walvis Bay CEO, Moronga and Ngura, obviously they have a big problem because being a harbour town, many of the trucks end up there or replenish there. And we all know that there's been quite a difficulty in terms of South African truckers that have to return immediately. Then they won't be quarantined, whereas Namibian ones, if they are supposed to work for their employer on an ongoing basis, they need to also follow that same system of coming in and going out as soon as possible, because once they want to return to their families, they first have to enter into 14 days quarantine or isolation. And obviously that puts huge strain on those drivers, because you can imagine they're not allowed to see their family even though they're at home.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's been going on for 21 days, due to go on for another, you know, so it's 6 weeks before they go home again. And even then they probably have to go into isolation.
Yeah, I think that is part of the reason why a lot of Namibians who are stuck in countries like South Africa, we understand there are about 200 of them that want to come home. But the fear of being quarantined for 14 days before you eventually proceed to your family, that is real.
Yeah.
And the government is very, very strict on that one at the moment.
Yeah, but it was also, you could also see the same issue with the vendors there.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine. I mean, we all know how quickly the lockdown actually took effect.
Yeah.
And yes, we all believe that everybody has a cell phone and everybody listens to radio and whatever, but they actually don't.
Yeah.
Not everybody is connected. And so what you found there is that typically these ladies came from Noorduva, bringing their tomatoes from there, selling them to Windhoek and then going back with whatever supplies they bring back home. So now they've been locked into Windhoek. They were not allowed to leave anymore. They were not allowed to go back to their families. They've got these structures there at Umbili and Okuriangava where they sort of live under these, yeah, you can't really call it a tent, it's a makeshift tent.
Yeah.
And they're not allowed out, they're not allowed to trade. How the heck must they survive? They have no access to the 750. So instead it simply said, no, you must be in your tent for what, 24 hours a day?
Doing what?
And that's again this whole thing about thinking practical when you have so many people under one tiny area. We should have thought it through a bit more. And by now, after 21 days, I really feel there must be some more hands-on decision that guides that.
Yeah, I think also I was looking at the schoolgirl from the coast, speaking about how she's doing her schoolwork, talking about printing out whatever attachments are sent to her via email. Again, you know, practical only for a very small section of society.
Yeah,
there's
because
a lot of
we don't all have printers at home.
Yeah, exactly. Today in Namibian Sun, our lead story is about teachers being told to add parents to WhatsApp groups, and which are then uploaded with study materials and whatnot. And again, very impractical, because teachers, a lot of them are saying, you know, but this is my private cell phone. There's no provision for data for me to do this. I have to buy my own data to do that. You know, so it's a lot of issues that have to be straightened out. Otherwise, it's a useless exercise.
Yeah, it comes back to that argument that maybe for the time being at least, this stuff needs to be printed out.
Yeah.
Because for the price of one newspaper, you can certainly not afford data yet. Precisely.
Now, this man here, my colleague Frank, spoke to our colleague Adolf Kaure at the coast in Swakopmund via Skype, also just giving us an update on what is happening that side. And this is what happened.
Yes, today we are speaking to Adolf Kaure. He's one of the journalists working for Namibian Sun, Republican, actually Namibia Media Holdings down at the coast. Good afternoon, Adolf. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Frank. I can hear you. How are you?
No, we're good. And I hope on your side the same. Are you healthy?
Yes, definitely making sure that I keep towards the precautions of the lockdown and so on.
Yeah, as you can see, we have gotten hold of Adolf in his car. He's obviously still having a look at what's happening at the coast. Adolf, just quickly, we spoke earlier, and you visited a pensioner's old age home or something like that.
Yes, I did manage to go and visit the retirement village, that is the Sokomun retirement village here at the coast, and they have put in a lot of precautionary measures to make sure that they do curb the COVID-19 pandemic in specifically in their village, and specifically they have they are dealing with the visitors that are coming in. They're making sure that only one visitor per resident is allowed in, and they are very strict in terms of screening these visitors as well. And they're making sure that they do fill in forms, registration forms at the gate, as well as screening forms. And they do have a WhatsApp group to make sure that all the residents are up to par. And the doctor, I spoke to Dr. Wolfgang Tietz, he told me a lot of things. He told me that the residents are practicing social distancing, and they're making sure that they do get enough sunlight and exercise, and they do eat very healthy as well.
And tell me, what do they do in terms of personnel? Because obviously we have a whole lot of personnel in the kitchen, medical care, frail care, whatever. What are they doing in that regard?
Yes, all staff members at the Swakopmund retirement village are screened every single day, and that includes the nurses, that includes everyone that works, whether it's in the restaurant, whether it's people who are going to fetch food, or even the security guards are screened on a daily basis to make sure that they are healthy and so on. And there is also sanitizing that is available throughout the retirement village, as well as at the gate for visitors.
Right, and then you apparently also witnessed the handing over of a donation for children and people from the poorer folk?
Yes, the Childline Lifeline Namibia, which is based in Walfish Bay, earlier today came to the office of the governor, where they are facilitating, or they're having a handover of around 150,000 US dollars worth of tabs, as well as food for all school children within the Erongo region, specifically Swakopmund, Walfish Bay, Omaruru, Karibeb, Usakos, and those are the children that have been part of the school feeding program. So as we know that schools are not yet open, and there are certain children that are still at home and that need something for to relieve the hunger pangs. And this donation was made possible by the legendary tennis player Roger Federer through his foundation, the Roger Federer Foundation.
Well, this is good news, especially with 150,000 US dollars. We all know what that relates to in terms of Namibia dollars. That's plenty more than 2 million. So there's at least some help on the way there. Tell me, what else can you tell me out of your region?
Yes, the Swakopmund municipality has as well managed to reconnect a household, that is 400 households. They've managed to reconnect their water after it was previously disconnected due to lack of payment. So Swakopmund municipality making sure that people do have water, especially in these trying times where the COVID-19 is really widespread throughout the world. And as we know, there are 16 cases, and we do want to make sure that it does not spread further, as water is very vital in the combat of COVID-19. And in the informal settlement as well, the Swakopmund municipality, when I spoke to the general manager of finance, Lao Narusep, earlier this week, he told me that they have procured water tanks which will be made available in the near future to make sure that all residents do have water. As you know, there is already free water available with over 70 water points that are designated throughout the DRC informal settlement.
Yeah, that's actually quite good news, because there's always one problem with opening all the water taps again. But if that accumulates it into debt, then obviously the people are not really assisted much. So it's really people who need access to free water, where they really can't afford to buy any water and even repay debt much later. But anyway, thank you very much for the impressions you gave us, and I hope you stay well.
Thank you very much, Frank, and keep in touch.
Okay, ciao. Yeah, much going on in Swakopmund.
Yeah.
And but without much ado, let's continue. Henriette Lamprecht of Republikein spoke to Dr. Eric Zuban. He's the representative of CDC in Namibia, and they spoke a bit about the isolation centers in Namibia.
With me in the studio today is Dr. Eric Juban. Dr. Eric is the Country Director for the Center for Disease Control. A hearty welcome, Dr. Eric.
Thanks, Henriette. Good to see you again.
Basically, what we want to clear today is the question of what is isolation and what is quarantine. Can you please just explain to our readers and listeners what is the difference between the two?
Certainly. In practice, they look very similar. They're both trying to prevent the spread of disease, in this case, COVID-19. So quarantine is what happens if you've been exposed to the disease. And it might even be if you're traveling from a place where we know there are a lot of cases. Quarantine would be separating yourself from other people for a period of time. In this case, for this disease, it's 14 days. In case you become infected and you don't know yet, that way you're not spreading to other people. With isolation, it's very similar, but this is for people where we know that they're infected. They have symptoms, they're sick. Then they go into isolation, also meaning that they're separated from other people for a period of time so that they're not spreading the virus to others.
The main aim, as I understood now, is to separate people from other people. We've got quite a few isolation centers currently in Namibia, and they are mostly at hospitals. And then you've got the quarantine sites where people are kept, hopefully not against their will. Can you please explain what would be the difference between a site used for isolation and then a site preferably used for quarantine then?
Sure. So with quarantine, these are folks who have been exposed potentially to a virus, but they don't have any signs that they have the illness themselves. So oftentimes there's different types of quarantine. There could be quarantine at home. There could be quarantine at a facility that could look a lot like a guest house or a hotel, something like that. There's no medical care needed. There is supervision, and there has to be a way for people to notify the authorities if they're starting to feel sick. But the idea is that they are living at a healthy state while they're in quarantine. With isolation, because we know these are people who are infected and potentially are sick, might even be seriously sick, there's some level of medical care, or at least medical supervision. So if they get worse, if they need more medical support, more interventions, it's available for them.
Lastly, Dr. Eric, you explained it now quite clearly. The CDC, are you guys in any way involved in Namibia in the setting up of isolation centers? Do you provide guidance?
So CDC provides guidance for different areas of the response. We try to bring international best practices to partnership with the Namibian government. We have technical experts that are involved in the surveillance, in the laboratory, in the case management, so all different areas. We don't set up isolation centers ourselves. Those are all being led by the ministry. We did, a few weeks back, manage to bring in some material support, some ambulances and some quarantine products, some equipment, some furniture for some of the border stations, particularly in the north, where we know that there's the potential for cases to come across the border, and we wanted to make sure that there were stocked isolation facilities there. But again, those are run by the ministry. We do a handover of that equipment when we're able to bring it into the country. so that they're better able to take care of quarantine, not just at the airport, not just at the border with South Africa, but in the other borders as well.
Thank you, Dr. Eric. We appreciate your time and input.
Sure thing. It's my pleasure.
Everybody has a better understanding of what the difference is, really.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think the two words are used too casually and interchangeably without really understanding. So we hope people have picked up the difference there. Up next is our colleague Maricel Stoffberg speaking, actually getting us some fitness tips from Claudia Marais. This is how you should keep fit.
But not quite as fast.
Hi, my name is Claudia, and today I'm going to show you a few workouts you can do at home. If you're interested in more, you can always follow my Instagram at BeliefFitClaudia.
Kom wonder, kom werklik, kom sterre verskiet. Kom glimlach, begin weer jou lewe geniet. Kom wonder, kom werklik, kom sterre verskiet. Maak geluk weer die tema van jou lied.
Kom moeg, kom met my, kom misverstaan. Kom huis toe, kom alleen, kom vinnig, kom saam. Kom happy, kom hartseer, kom smile, kom traan. Kom winter, kom somer, kom sonskyn, kom maan. Kom met
I said not quite as fast.
No, that was one hell of training.
Anyway, yeah, with that we've really come to the end of our show. We still want to bring you those positive pictures which we try and bring to you each day. Today we've got one from Chantal Lowe. She calls it 2 miracles in one. I can totally get what she's referring to. I mean, it's a magnificent sundowner opportunity, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, welcome rain, as we love it. And then we've already for a while now put out the challenge to try and show your flag and be proud of who we are. So here's another challenge that obviously worked out.
Indeed, beautiful.
Yeah, and with that, it's the end of the show. Thank you very much for watching. Toivo, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and have a nice day.